Hi, everybody. We'll get started here in just a minute. I've got the recording started, so hopefully we'll get a recording this time.
Hey, Colin, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Did you get my last email?
Let me check here just a second. Oh, yeah. I agree. That's where I have mine is at 8 o'clock for the opening tea times. But I'm going to open at 7 also on Sunday, like Steve is, if that's unless you want me to move them to 8 now.
Well, the good thing about that is it's daylight savings, the beginning of it.
Right. I was just going to do it for that one day just because it's going to be super nice. But I can move them all to 8 if you'd like. That's no issue though. But
I think
all the rest of mine are at 8.
I think that's fine. Leave it.
Okay.
Do it at 7.
Okay.
I'm going to type something up and respond to everybody.
Okay. Sounds
All
good.
right. Thanks.
Huh?
Oh, we can't hear you very well.
There you are.
Looks like we've got a quorum, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Are there any announcements?
Not that I have, no.
Okay. Public comment?
No.
No public comment. Approval of minutes, due to technical difficulties, as you see on our agenda here. No recording, from the October 7th meeting, but there has been printed minutes, just like the good old days. Any comments? Did everybody have a chance to review, said minutes from October 7th? Any comments on that? I would make a motion to approve the minutes, dated October 7th.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Those will be posted on our website, correct? New items for consideration, finance report. Hop right into Emma, who doesn't want to join us in the cool kids table, so.
Oh. All right. Well, sorry. Okay, so it's gonna be really short and sweet, like previously, just a higher level number with some details in there. We're gonna go through the first slide, Penny. I'm not sure how I can request. Oh, there you go.
There.
Okay, so overall, the revenue, we're sitting at about $4 million and some change. And the listed, it has broken down to different golf courses. And as you can see, Auburn is still really strong, and tax is following. They're pretty on par with each other. And then there is Sim and Mac, a little shorter, but still a lot better than last year at 19. We're gonna go to next slide. Sure why it's not going to the next slide.
I think it did, didn't it?
Okay, thanks. Oh, go too far. And expenses, we're sitting at about 2.8. And it has the details as well. Our locations are pretty on par with each other on expenses, and that gave us net about 1.1 million, which is very exceptional, because if we look at the comparison, and it has details like I did in the previous, how much it went to. 55% payroll, there's no surprise there. 22% contractual and 23% commodity. And then since they were show interest on knowing where how much is the city admin charges and then the public safety fees, so I have them in here as well. But most importantly, look at the comparison from 19 to 20 to 21. As you can see, we're over $1 million in revenue or in that compared to 2019, which is very exceptional, in my opinion. Anywho, so that's what I have for high level on financial reports. If you guys have more questions or want to drill down to details, let me know. I can provide that information as well. Any questions right now or so far?
Emma, I know you get this question every month, but what are we forecasting now that we're coming up at year end? What do we think we're going to end up at December 31st?
Sure. I actually don't have the forecast right now, but I can definitely work on that, and then also check with the finance department, because I know they have certain way they forecast as well. So I can get something to you guys like next week, maybe, if that works.
Any more questions for Emma on the financials?
If I could jump in a little bit, and
Sure.
this is going to wrap up with what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later, but there's additional expenses that happen after the year. There's also other things that we need to pay for. So, and I'm also going to be moving some of that money. We have more expenses than we budgeted for. You have to spend money to make money, obviously. So we have some opportunities to make some repairs as well. So a couple days ago on Tuesday, that bottom line that you saw, that close to just over $1 million, I'm actually using $325,000 of that to make repairs and upgrades to the irrigation system and to some other items that need to keep the golf courses sustainable. So just because you see that good number on the bottom, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to end up at the end of the year, because I'm already using some of that money for other repairs, similar to what we did last year. Last year we were over $400,000, almost $500,000 in the black. And if you recall, we used $350,000 to go make repairs to Tex Consolver, and we're using the money for ponds over at McDonald. So reinvesting back into the courses is what this is all about.
Troy, this is Nancy. So you're saying that our year-end 2020 was not the 438,000?
No, it was, but I've already spent $350,000 of that for those other repairs.
In this year, okay.
Yeah. I'm just getting ahead. I need to get this stuff done, and so here's an opportunity for 2021. We're already in the million in the black, but I need to spend some of that money already to make some repairs.
Troy, this is Niall. I was late getting there, but I was. Could you elaborate a little bit on what the necessity was for going to the council to approve expenses? That whole process was a little confusing to me.
Sure. So every year we are budgeted a certain amount of money for expenses, and there's a certain amount of money that we're budgeted for expected revenues. We far surpassed the expected revenues that was budgeted by a lot. And we were very conservative, and so that's why that number was a little bit low, but we've surpassed that projection of revenues. But with that, we've also surpassed the projection of expenses. Kind of my comment earlier is if you spend money to make money. So the more that we make in concessions, we still have to buy the product to sell. So we're buying all the items that go into the F&B. Some other items as well is making some repairs. If we don't fix the irrigation, then we don't have water to water the golf courses. And so we had already spent all of our money that was budgeted. But since we're enterprise, we get to use the money that we make. And so that's why we made the budget adjustment, so I can have access to $325,000 to pay bills, but primarily to make those repairs to the irrigation systems.
I see. So the council, even though you're way in the black, the council has to approve any expenses of it above what you had projected when you went into this year's budget. Is that?
That's exactly correct. And that's why it makes it so
Okay.
cumbersome. It's very frustrating and cumbersome because, and which is I'm going to talk about a little bit later when we talk about the contract using a third-party operator. A third-party operator, they're managing their own money. They would be able the next day just to go ahead and do whatever it is that they need to do because they're managing the money on a daily basis. So that's one of the pros of having a third-party operator. Unfortunately, the council said, yes, we agree with you, and they approved it, but they could have said no for one reason or another. So it just very cumbersome, very difficult when we're going through this financial system. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Sorry, I'm having trouble. I'm getting a little delay here on my mute system, but yeah, that did. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Any other questions on the finances? See none. Brown's report will be available.
Well, we sent it out. They have
Okay.
it.
Who will be giving that?
I'm assuming Shanna.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'll toss it over to you, Shanna, if you're ready.
I think Troy was gonna cover that.
Oh, okay. Brown's report?
I thought Applehans was going to cover that. I could go over it if you can put it on the screen. That would be great. All right, so we're looking at the Browns report through the end of October, and this is all from our point of sale system. So this is where we get the numbers, not from finance. This is the numbers that we get from our point of sale system. So again, much like what Emma was talking about, is really reflective here. This is what's given us the boost of revenue. Our rounds reports are doing really well. We are right now 30,000 over in rounds compared to what we were last year, and that's we still got 2 more months. I'm really excited because the goal that I was really looking for was hitting 160,000. The average that I was really looking for was 40,000 for each course, and I think we're going to get that. I'm really excited. So the next category down is monthly reports. I mean the monthly rounds for October, and so that gives you the specific amount of rounds that happened this month of October, and you can compare that with the October rounds from 2019 and 18 and 17, and consistently across the board you can see that we're doing better than what we've done in the past. The theme with that is that how we figure out to continue to keep that happening, that's the big question. And as I'm talking to other golf folks across the country, they've already kind of explained that they're thinking that the COVID peak has already happened. And so that there's some golf courses that are already seeing declines in their averages as everything else is opening up. So, all right, for the cart rentals, again, we're seeing the same thing from one year to the next, just steady increase on the cart rentals, which has really had an impact on our bottom line. So you're looking there, a difference of $250,000, $275,000, which is a huge amount for us. So I'm glad to see that. And the same thing with our food and beverage, with our limited menu and menu choices. This just kind of gives us some more flexibility to put money back into food and beverage in the future if it ends up staying with us, and we can be a little bit more creative. But this definitely kind of tells the theme that I've been talking about, is that if we have some investment in our food and beverage, we might be able to make even more than this. The next section is all about our monthly membership comparisons, since I think that's something that you guys wanted to see. And these are, if I understand this right, these are categories of all the different memberships that we have per month. And so we see some go up and some go down, just depends on the time of the year. And we saw a little decline from September to October. And there's many different reasons for that. Some of them are medical reasons, some of them are people are moving, some of them ended their annual membership and don't want to re-up. So, but typically always in the spring, you start seeing that number go back up. Driving range. Here's the revenue for the driving range. And adding on McDonald has been a big help. And obviously with more people going to the golf courses, we're seeing our driving range numbers go up as well. So that's a kind of a quick overview of that report. If you go down a little bit more, kind of gives a little bit of information about some of the maintenance that we're doing, and then some impact on some of the closures due to weather. And we did get some major rains that had some impact on our hours of operation, as well as some frost delays, which I'm sure we're going to see some more of that coming in November and December. Any questions or any the golf pros, if you guys want to add anything to that, let me know.
Nothing?
All right.
Troy, I'll let you, moving on to prior business. I know we talked about maintenance and repairs, but I'll let you button that up as necessary. And then I think it's pertinent that we give everybody kind of an update on the RFP process as well. So I'll let you slide right into that too.
Thank you. Thank you for making me do all the work. All right. So as I alluded to, there's some projects that we're working on. I wanted to get some updates, and it's my understanding that the ponds over at McDonald have been scheduled, and we're looking at making those repairs probably end of November and into December. So hopefully that's scheduled. That schedule is going to come to fruition. They're actually only going to be on site probably about 2 to 3 days. I think they could get the work done pretty quickly, is my understanding. So I'm excited about that. And Steve, I don't know if you have an update on your roof and your HVAC. You might have something more recent than I have.
AC, the commercial AC unit was put in last week. Still trying to get it up and going. They're troubleshooting a couple leaks they have, but that should be going soon. The roof was supposed to start this week, but with the rain in the forecast, probably bump back into next week, but we're getting close.
All right, that'd be great when those get done. We could put check marks on those. So that was from last year's money. And as I shared with you guys a little while ago, I'm already spending money from 2021 on some irrigation repairs that basically all 4 golf courses are actually needing some major repairs, and we're spending some major money at all 4 golf courses. So this is just not quite a Band-Aid, but I think there's going to be some upgrades to our irrigation system, but it's definitely because all of our equipment is starting to fail. And so we want to make sure that we get those things taken care of, so the golf courses can operate really well next year. The next topic, any questions on that? All right, so then we go on to the next topic in regards to the RFP. So I think I shared with you all, we had received 7 bids, and the committee, which consists of Eddie and Mike is on it as well. We also had, let's see, AJ was on it, Anthony Jenkins, as well as, who else was that?
Greg Ferris.
Greg Ferris. How could I forget Greg Ferris? So they were on the committee along with a couple other staff members. And so we went from 7 to 4, and we actually did 4 interviews about a week and a half ago. And actually, it's been a week ago. It's gone by pretty fast, a week ago. So we have come to one firm that we wanted to look forward to having some discussions with and looking at a little bit closer on their proposal. Their proposal, we passed it on to the city manager. He was actually in on the interviews as well, and he wants to take a closer look at the financials and what they're actually proposing. So once I get the green light, we'll have some discussions with them and start looking at what could be a contract that we would all agree on. And within that contract, the things that I'm really looking for is anything that kind of holds them accountable, items that are expected in regards to quality and customer service. One of the things that was really interesting across the board when we talked to all of the firms is that they really weren't too interested in making a whole lot of changes in regards to fees. And one of the things that we all discussed was that any fees would finally be, any final changes to fees would go to council. And so council would drive those expectations of what the cost of golf is going to be. So that was really good news that we're all on the same page. And I think they understand the idea of quality golf that's affordable to everybody, actually making money through repeated customers and having a lot of customers and keeping our rounds up. So that was kind of what was the theory behind a lot of the proposals that came to us. So I'm expecting the city manager and finance to provide us their recommendations before we start negotiating the contract and before we take it to our legal department. When we do that and we have a pretty good solid draft of the contract, we want to bring that back to the Golf Advisory Committee and bring that back to the Park Board as well. So we don't have a hard deadline on this, which is the good thing, is that we can continue further into January and even February if we need to. So we want to make sure we get it right the first time. We want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And so we're taking this nice and slow. Did I miss anything?
I think you covered most of it. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I got just a quick one. Are you able to tell us who the 4 finalists were, and of that, which was the one that you are advancing?
I can't tell you the 4 finalists yet because we not made a final decision on who we're moving forward with. We have a recommendation, and we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page in regards to the discussion, because if we're not, then we could go to the second finalist that was selected, or the third finalist. So and then we can have ourselves in a difficult situation if that information goes out. So at this point in time, I can't tell you who those are.
are you, under your current policies, does the council have to approve any increase in golf revenue for green fees, cart rentals? Do they have to approve those currently?
They do. What we do is we discuss it in the golf advisory committee, take the recommendation, take that recommendation to the park board. The park board will support or amend or not support an increase or decrease. It could also be a decrease. And whatever that decision is, we tag that on as a recommendation as we go to council. Council might not agree with the recommendation and do something different. So, but ultimately, through the recommendations, it goes to council for final approval.
So is it, and if the RFPs are the way to go, and you do privatize this, does your park board still have to review and approve those, or does that relieve them of that responsibility?
So from what we're looking at as a third-party operator, that they would still be part of the recommendation process, not necessarily the decisions, because park board provides recommendations along with the golf advisory committee. We would take those recommendations to council.
So the park board would still be involved in that process?
Yes.
Okay.
Richard, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, just to tag on to the last conversation. Over the last years, 5 or 6 years, one of our biggest problems is the fact that we're a business, and yet you cannot operate a business if you have a cumbersome decision-making apparatus that give you just rolling out some examples. It took almost a year and a half from the recommendation point and the approval of finance to get it through park board and the city for the membership system. Because we had worked with Mark Manning, and the initial the amount of money that we were going to charge for each of the different classifications in the memberships, we were trying to match that to the pass system so that people wouldn't have any sticker shock and not want to move into the new system. But it was always meant to make sure that we could adjust that. And as you know, and I brought up before, that's been almost, I think it's been 2 years now that we talked about adjustments in both the membership and the card fees, and it still never made it. Just out of curiosity, since you will be working with the city legal, why would we keep the same system, and why not? Because it doesn't work. It can't work, and a business has to be able to make adjustments. Why keep the bureaucracy? And a minute ago, you indicated that part of the idea of a new a third party vendor to run the courses is their ability to, as you said, spend the money. But incumbent in that is the ability to make decisions and move the process along. Yeah, I mean, why are we not looking at that?
So I think there's a lot of different factors with this. I recall when we were going through decision-making in regards to passes, it went back and forth. And at that time, we were meeting every 6 weeks, not just every month. I remember suggestions going to Mr. Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks would come back with more information to the Golf Advisory Committee. They wanted more information. And so we'd go back to Mr. Manning, And months passed because there was a lot of back and forth in regards to what was wanted by the Golf Advisory Committee, asking for more information before they make a decision or a recommendation. When I do recall, when it did actually finally come to a final package and went to the park board recommended it rather quickly, and we took it to council. And once it got to council, it got voted on and was ratified rather quickly. And then we were able actually to implement it. So that's what I recall. And then in recent months, in regards to, we've all discussed this and said we know that we need to make some changes to the fees. The cart fees should go up. We have some opportunities to increase the passes. And this is something that each one of the firms had discussed as well in their proposals, some very, very small adjustments and modest fees to actually bring on some extra revenue. They presented that as well. But when we were first talking about First Tee taking over along with their partner, we had talked about that almost a year and a half ago, and the council didn't want to make any changes until that decision was made. The decision was made not to go with them. The decision was made to let's hear more opportunities of other offers. So again, there was a decision not to make any changes until we figure out what is going on, what was actually the final decision. So that has gone for a year and a half. It's not because we can't make a decision or there's too much red tape, but the actual decision was because let's wait to figure out what is finally going to happen and make a decision on that. And as we discussed, I think it was actually last month, if we are to retain the operations, I'm going to move very quickly to see what we can do to adjust our fees. I'm excited if that's what we're going to do. If it ends up being the third-party operator, you guys are going to be involved in discussions with them because they want to have this opportunity to work with the stakeholders, figure out what that's going to be, and we can move that forward very quickly. But what I recall from previous meetings was there was just a lot of back and forth with the Golf Advisory Committee, wanting to get more information from staff, getting some more information from Mr. Manning, what are some other things that are going on with other communities. I remember Mr. Hendricks providing a lot of different meetings of reports and giving feedback on information.
But, and I understand that, but from the point where we approved it and then came back in to make the adjustment, at one point, and in fact, I think it is still lost. Nobody knows where it is. My question is, in running the operation of golf, why go through the park board and why not go through finance and have it submitted by the third party vendor, or you, should we not pick a third party vendor, so that it would go from whoever's running it to finance to the city. The park board, I don't see a role, with all due respect to the president. It just gets bogged down in the process of going to the park board, and I'm trying to figure out the reason that it should go to the park board, because in a business setting, city finance is the one that would be best suited to make a recommendation whether or not the requested fees are good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, I see your point, and it's not my decision to make. I'm not making a recommendation one way or the other. I'm just explaining what has happened in the past and what the system could look like in the future. Ultimately, it's the council that would decide who they want their information from. It's my understanding that council wants the quality community engagement going through the park board. I think right now they feel comfortable when there's a recommendation coming from the park board on certain items, not just golf, but other items as well. We always use finance as an opportunity to vet different financial situations and issues. They give us great information and recommendations. So that's always going to be part of it. That's just my understanding.
Yeah, I'll just hop in here. Finance is involved in almost every recommendation that I can remember from the park board going to the council. Another reason, that city council members have appointed, the park board members themselves. They've got good relationship with them. We talk to one another, at least in my case, at least once a month. I know that's the case for several other board members as well. And the park board ultimately owns the land as well. So that's why the process is what it is, Richard.
At minimum, then the park board needs to adjust their process. Honestly, Eddie, most everything gets stuck at the park board.
And give me an example of what got stuck recently?
Again, we're just talking about carts and the minor adjustment to memberships. We're talking $1 million. And Mark Manning, when he was in there, when he appeared for us, I asked him in front of everybody and on the record, and he said, yeah, that $1 million figure is probably right. We made the recommendation and it disappeared. And then we kept asking about it and asking, and finally it was admitted, we can't find the recommendation. And then that's when a full year, over a year after we made the recommendation, that we started the process with First Tee. So my whole thing was in going from us. Most of the time, we never hear anything. There is no process where we send up something to the park board, and the park board looks at it and responds to us. It's a recommendation. They decide whether or not they're going to do whatever with it, but we never hear. It was like the deal with Clap Park. We got no response at all, and the only way we found out was by reading it in the paper. And honestly, it went by the wayside. That has been the history of our sending stuff up to the park board. Is there's no mechanism where the individual GAC and maybe we'll just disappear. And what I'm saying is, if you get a third party vendor, there has to be a system where it is able to operate like a business, because you need to be able to do adjustments. And that's all I'm saying is, if you see a weakness in the system, and you're trying to go to a new system, give that vendor an opportunity, just give him a chance to succeed if you see something that hasn't worked.
So I think that's one of the big reasons why we're talking about the day-to-day operations, going back to a third-party operator. They can make adjustments very quickly on the fly, whether it's marketing, whether it's replacing of equipment, whether it's making a repair out in the field, coming up with ideas and improvements of the day-to-day operations. They're going to have full autonomy to do whatever they want to do to make it better. Within the scope of what we're looking for and accountable for making those improvements. Again, what I mentioned was those suggestions went forward, and they went forward to the city manager. And I think I came back and told the Golf Advisory Committee that the council was not ready to make any changes until some decisions were made in regards to how golf was going to be managed. So maybe they weren't necessarily in writing, but those are things that came back to me from the city manager that I reported back to the Golf Advisory Committee as well as to the park board. And there's been items where the park board has received recommendations from the Golf Advisory Committee and didn't necessarily support those either, and they voted on it. And I think that information came back to the Golf Advisory Committee as well.
Niall?
Thank you, Eddie. do you have any reason to anticipate that at our November, or I'm sorry, our December meeting that you will have a specific proposal to discuss with us?
That's my hopes. I'm really thinking it would be before that. I'm hoping that we can, within the next couple of weeks, have an agreement put in place and have it reviewed by our legal department. I want to make sure that we get it done the right way, and I want to bring it back to the Golf Advisory Committee.
Can I ask, and I know this gets into your nimbleness that Richard was getting into, but when you have that and you're ready to bring it to us, can we get a summary or a fact sheet or something far enough in advance so that we'll have time to think about that before that meeting? I mean, currently, we get our we get the rounds report and the financial reports and what's this and what's that a few hours before our committee meeting. But in this case, if it's at all possible, could we, get that information and have in a format that would give us time to think about that, review that, and sharpen our questions when we're ready to talk about it?
Yeah, most definitely. I think we've looked at what we want to do is provide highlights of what the agreement would have, some of the negotiating points, so you guys could be familiar with that. One of the things why we...
And we could get that well in advance of the day
Yeah.
that we're going to make our recommendation.
And one of the reasons why you get the rounds report today.
I don't have a problem with that. I was just using that as an example of.
Sure, but what I'm saying is the reason why you're getting the rounds report today or yesterday in the financials is because it just closed on Monday.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I'm not raising a problem with that. I'm
Okay.
just saying that in this case, I think it would be, I would really appreciate some time to look at it and think about it before we meet and discuss it. That's all I had. Thanks.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments on the RFP process and how we move forward? Steve?
I have one question.
Sure.
For those of you that were there during the interviews, were there any ideas that they came up with that made you think, well, if this doesn't go through, this is something we would like to implement right away?
I'll jump in first, and yeah, there was some very informative professionals that they're giving us their best. They're putting their best foot forward. So yeah, I came away with some ideas and some different perspectives. It was pretty interesting to me. Yeah.
Agreed.
I can tell you, Colin, there was a lot of things they talked about, but the biggest things for me that I noticed was the F&B. They talked about very minimal changes needed at SIM, Mac, or text. Just bringing in the use of something as simple as a panini press or a Foreman to add a better variety to your menu, or as far as programming, partnering with the high schools to do more and 5 and Wine programs, just little things like that we've talked about, but we haven't actually moved forward with implementing. There is an amazing slider on top of a beer with golf balls on top of that to take out to the driving range to get somebody to hit and eat their slider and drink their beer and take a photo and share that on Facebook or Instagram. So there was a lot of great ideas that I took note of, thinking, okay, if we don't move forward with this, we've definitely got to do this in 2022.
Yeah, what I liked was this whole idea of 5 holes with wine. That was pretty interesting. I never thought about just playing 5 holes. So it hits a different clientele and brings in different people using our golf courses and a different way of marketing as well. So it was, a lot of it was very eye-opening.
Hey, Colin, just real quick from my standpoint, I think food and beverage is probably the easiest place to go to just because it's probably has the most room for growth and the most room for opportunity. So as Shanna mentioned, that was talked about by almost everybody. I think, when I sit in there, I'm still looking at it as a golfer's perspective and as somebody who walks into the courses and is going to play golf. And so I won't say any specifics, but I think just some of the processes that you get exposed to by engaging with those type of organizations who have breadth across the country as to how they manage, a 13-step customer interaction from the time you walk into the door until the time you leave. I think there's certainly little things from not just a food and beverage standpoint, but from a golf standpoint, a service standpoint, a customer experience standpoint that we took away and asked questions on and jotted notes down of that certainly could be areas of improvement if we decided to keep it, internally. That's, for me, it's like, getting to interview a franchise from like a Freddy's or a Starbucks. It's not really the coffee they hand you. It's the process that they go through to make the coffee or to make the hamburger. And we got a little bit of insight into their processes, which I think was a good thing, and at the same time, positions themselves as leaders in their fields as well, and kind of sets some people apart from others. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Well, that's great information. Thanks, guys.
Another thing that just pops in my head was, they had talked a little bit about having to put some investment into it as well. It's not like you can just do all this stuff with the equipment that we have. And now that we're in the black, and now that we have some money, if we end up keeping it ourselves, I think there's an opportunity for us to invest into F&B. The situation that we had 2, 3, 4 years ago was we were in the red, and there was no way that we could make those investments into F&B. But also with that, though, you have to measure that and balance that with the right amount of labor as well and staffing. So it's all an equation, and you need to have that equation where balance is good, but if we end up in the black, it's even better. But those are some of the things that you really need to sit down, and us as a business, as Richard had talked about, is operating as a business, is really looking at quality rates of return. And we can even do rates of return that are kind of small, but we need to be very careful with that. Those are things that we weren't able to do in the past, and that's why things, if we do it ourselves, we got to make some changes. There's going to be some major changes that we have to do.
And another thing, Colin, that they touched on is they really raved about the junior programming that's offered in the division and what a great job you guys do, and especially partnering with the Junior Golf Foundation and First Tee. But they really touched on the fact that there was a lack of social programming for adults and couples. And I know, like at your course specifically, you've offered couples programming. And I think something they really touched on was trying to grow that facet and make it more inviting and a social element.
Right. Yeah. I definitely enjoyed the ones that we did this year where we had the couples and then they got drinks included afterwards, and they stayed and chatted, and it was definitely a better social interaction.
Well, and something I really appreciated is one group told us that they were able to survey their customers, and because these guys are national corporations, that their survey responses 25,000-30,000 people from surveys, and they said a lot of what they saw was that more people wanted it more of a social environment, not necessarily playing all 18 holes, but maybe playing 5 or 9 and then having something to do as a group in the clubhouse afterwards. So you're able to survey that many people. I think that information is huge, especially when it's coming across from the country as opposed to our small segmented group here in Wichita, Kansas. I think that gives us a lot of feedback in a really good direction to go.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Richard, did you have a question or is your hand still up from the last question? I think you're on mute. Now you're on hold.
Sorry about that.
Take that as no question. Anybody else? If not, we can go to the pros update. Stay hot, Colin. We'll go with you first.
Okay, well, today was our last day of senior league, so it ended a long year of those guys had a lot of fun, and they got their final gift cards and everything today, so they're all pumped to go spend money at all of our courses with those. And but yeah, a lot of stuff is winding down, and we're having our ladies club end of the year party this week, and just stuff like that. So a lot of stuff's just kind of winding down, and but it looks like we're gonna have really good weather next week, so we should do really good.
Good. Any questions for Colin? If not, we will go to Scott next. He's still with us.
Thank you, Eddie. Echoing Colin, our senior league will wrap up next Wednesday. It's been a long year for us. Postponed it the last 2 Wednesdays. Our senior league has increased by about 30 to 40% over the last couple of years. So it'd be nice to kind of wrap up the senior league portion of it. Our ladies and our men's club, both Wednesdays and Saturdays, men's club has finalized for the year. We're in the process right now, just kind of getting things in order for next year, working on scheduling events and rebooking the outings that we had last year, again for 2022. I don't know the exact number, somewhere between 35 and 45 events in 2021. We'd be picking up a few more in 2022 as some of these associations that Niall is probably familiar with in Topeka, they transition through the city of Wichita about every 2 to 3 years. Through my association of contacts with them, they will be transitioning back to Auburn Hills in 2022. So looking forward to 2022. It looks like another busy year, which makes me kind of excited that all the hard work and the efforts that we put in to retain these outings and events year after year are still loyal to our brand and what we provide them here at Auburn Hills. So ready for the year to kind of slow down a little bit, but we need to make hay while we can still make it. So with this weekend and the following week coming up, it looks like we've got a good chance to still make a little bit of revenue despite the fact we lose an hour of daylight.
Excellent. Any questions for Scott? Now we can move on to Steve. Thanks, Scott.
I'm kind of in the same boat with Scott. All the leagues and tournaments have finished up. Really just working on contacting leagues and tournaments and getting them rebooked for next year. Like we talked about earlier, some facility improvements, trying to get the new roof on, commercial AC unit back up and going. A bunch of stuff like that. We've had a record year. I mean, rounds have been through the roof. The shorter days, we'll be able to squeeze in as many people as we can, but with frost and short daylight, our opportunities going down here pretty quick. So yeah, it's been a good year. We've excited to have everybody out and hoping to hit 50,000 rounds, but I think we're going to fall short this year.
Okay. Any questions for Steve? Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. Quick president's update from me. Myself, Troy, and Michael kind of dusted off our acting skills yesterday and hopped on the city's Facebook Live page just to kind of go through a 15-minute what does this RFP process look like at a high level. So if you want to see that, it was pretty fun. Shout out to Megan Lovely for coming up with a great script, even though I went off of it a couple times. So it's on the city's Facebook page, if I'm not mistaken.
It's on the Wichita Facebook page too, and it's going out in an email blast today at 6:30.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. And again, if the city manager and legal and finance come to terms with the group recommended, we will probably be in touch with all of you to potentially set an emergency meeting should we need one. So we'll be constantly communicating how that process is going. That's all I got. If nobody has anything else, we can adjourn. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you guys.
Take care,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.